If you are doing task management using simple checkboxes in Notion, then I'm here to show you a better way. Now I want to show you how to do it using related databases. And this is such a powerful concept in Notion that not only applies to task management, but to many other workflows and use cases in Notion. And that's why this is one of my favorite features. And this is actually what makes Notion, I think, really powerful and unique. And so if you can get this concept down for task management, you can get it down for all sorts of other ways of using it in Notion, and you'll be well on your way to becoming a Notion master. And so that's why I want to show you just this one use case in its simplest form to get you going on that path. I'm Josh Red. I'm a Notion certified consultant and just a Notion nerd, and I'm excited to show you this video. If you like it, please press the like button and subscribe if you want to see more, and let's get into the video. All right, so to do tasks in Notion, a lot of people get started by doing the really simple to-do list, which is /to-do, and then we get these nice checkboxes. So if we're going to the store, we can type in our shopping list, apples, oranges, and squash. We're buying some veggies and fruit, staying healthy. And so you can checkbox these, but I think a lot of people realize pretty quick that this is not as powerful as they need, especially as they start tracking tasks across projects, and then also wanting to keep track of who to assign the tasks to, when the due date was, maybe some other information about that task. It's really hard to kind of manage all of those in one spot. You can imagine this one list doesn't really communicate very well with all of your other lists. And so what we want to actually do is level up our task management and even project management by using databases, which is one of my favorite things in Notion. In fact, it's, I think, the most important part about Notion that makes it really powerful. And so if you can master this concept for task and project management, you really can take that knowledge and use it for so many other things in Notion. And so learning this will be well worth your time. So instead of doing the to-do list like I just showed you, we want to actually do databases that are related together. And so this is what it might actually finish looking like once we're completed. And so we've got projects that are actually related to these tasks, and I'll explain what that means as we go through this. And you can see these tasks are much more robust. We've got a completed checkbox, which you still had, but then we've got a due date, and then we can relate it to the project. In fact, we can even add a ton more things using these properties over at the database, including maybe tagging it with multi-select or doing a status for a more nuanced version of the checkbox. So maybe it's in progress or it's waiting on something. We can add multiple dates if that makes sense. We can add files and media. You get the point. There's a lot that you can add to these databases when you put them in the database. And so that's why we want to learn and master this concept. And so let me go back and let's build that from scratch. So let's start with building our two databases that we need for this example, which is tasks and projects. Now in Notion, there is no task database, there's no project database, there's just databases, and you define what those databases are for. So this is where you really get to play with the Legos of software and build your own system that works for you. It can be kind of daunting at first, but that is where a lot of the power gets unlocked and where a lot of people really thrive in using Notion. So we're gonna make two of those databases. There's a few different ways to do it, but let me just do it by creating a table. And if I click this, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to end up making a database, and this might look right, and it is right, but this database lives as a table under this tasks and projects page. And that's okay, but I think I also want to teach you a good concept, a good best practice for Notion, which is keeping all of your databases in one spot. So we're actually going to do that a little different. So let me delete that. And what I want to do is create that database as its own standalone page. And so I'm going to create a page, and from an empty page, you're able to turn it into a table directly from here, as long as you don't type anything in the page to begin with. And so let's say I want to make a projects database, and I click this table button. It's going to turn it into a database, and instead of choosing one, I don't want to use an existing database. I want to make a new database. So I'm going to click that, and then with every database that I create, I almost always, by second nature, just immediately delete those blank ones and delete this tags column, and we can start from scratch here. So I've made the projects database. I'm gonna add a little icon. I like to use this one for some reason. And I'm actually going to title this project. You don't need to, but this tells you what are the things, what are the objects within this database that we're going to include in this database. We're gonna include projects. So whatever item would be in here would be a project. So project A, that is a project. So let's go back. And now let's create a tasks database. So let me show you the other way of making a table. I just showed you can create a page and then turn it into a table. Now let's go back to that version where I said don't do this. But let me show you, if you do this, you can still turn it into a full page from this. This is what we call an inline database. And they're fine, but I think a good practice is to keep them all in one spot as pages, and then I'll show you how you can see that database using linked views. So now that I have this inline one, this is going to be our tasks database. I am going to click the 6 dots right here next to this table, and then I want to turn into page. So if I turn it into a page, it now looks just like our projects table right there. Click into it. Let me add a icon. I like to do the blue check. And then let's call this task, because the tasks in here are going to be tasks, obviously. All right, so now we have a database of projects and tasks. So going back to your simple task list that you had, instead of doing this, we can now use this database and start adding properties to help us manage our tasks a little better. And so the first thing that you probably want to include is some way of telling you or other people, if you're working with other people, that the task is done. And so the simple way of doing that is a checkbox. So I've just created a new property. Let me show you that again. Click this plus button right here. That's going to allow us to create a new property on the table. We want to select, these are all the different options for properties that we can create. They all have their own unique way of working with the data that you put in it. And so we want to choose the right one for the job. So let's choose a checkbox. That's what I chose. And then I'm just going to retitle this done. You might title it completed or whatever. This is just saying this task is done. And again, Notion doesn't really understand that as much as you understand that. And then you set up Notion in a way that makes sense. So you create your own system. And so then another really common property that you might want for tasks is a due date. And so we need a date property. So that's one of those properties over here. Click date. And then I want to define what is this date supposed to mean? It is the due date. So when do I need to get this done by? And some people actually use multiple date properties, one for DO, due date, DO, and then one for DUE date. So this would be more like a deadline, the DUE, and then the DO would be more like when do you plan to do it? And then you can also see, okay, when does this actually need to get done? So that's due date. And now we can task manage a little more powerfully, and there's plenty more that you can do with this. But what this means is that you can check these as done, and you might wonder, okay, well, how does that really help me? Well, you're able to use these filters to filter out or in certain things that you only want to see based on the context. So maybe we want to only see tasks that are unchecked, which means that they are not done, and we still need to get them done. So I just filtered done is unchecked. So I only want to see the ones that are unchecked, and now I do. And so then I could title this little tab right there. I'm not going to get too much into this for this video, but I've titled this tab active because this tab with this filter represents all the tasks that are still active in my task database. The other ones that I did complete are not, they're not gone, they're not deleted, they are just filtered out because of this filter. You can see done unchecked. So then I can create another one. Let's just duplicate the active view so we can start from somewhere that's close to what we want. And we'll just call this one completed, if I can type. So on completed, I want to see all the tasks that are checked. And right now it still has that same filter because I duplicated it. So I'm gonna go over to that filter, done is checked. and save it. So now we've got active and completed. And if I wanted to, let's say I did this on accident, task 1 actually isn't complete, uncheck it. It disappeared from this view and goes over to this view where it is unchecked now, and I can bump them back and forth. And if we add due dates, I can sort so that I see the most recent ones at the top, or you can set these tables up however you want. This is just one very simple example of a database, and again, you can get into a lot more complex workflows, but let's stick to the project and task management for this video. So going back to that main page, we can also do some of the same concepts to projects. You can add dates and timelines and all these other things to it. As you start working in your files and knowledge management, you can relate files, you can relate people and companies, whatever you want to make a database out of, you can connect these. And what I mean by connecting is I'm going to relate these two tables together. This is the key that I want to show you, which is relating these databases together with a relation property. So I click that plus button again, just like all the other properties that I've made, and I'm going to choose this relation down here. When I click that, it's going to ask me what database do I want to relate it to. And if you're a little lost, just follow with me, and once this is all done, you'll see what this is actually accomplishing, and it'll make a lot of sense. I want to choose that task database that I created, and I want to connect them. And you can see I've got a few task databases, so I want to choose the right one. And I know this is it because it says tasks and projects, and that's the main page that this one lives in, and I know the task database lives in. I'm going to choose that. And then I want to click this toggle so that it shows on both sides, and then make sure I click add relation. So now this property is right here, and it says tasks. If I click in the cell, I can now see tasks from that other table, and I can click on them to relate them to this particular project. If I make a project B, it's not related. I can relate it. I can relate that same task to multiple projects. That probably doesn't make too much sense with project management, but I can relate maybe multiple on project B. And so now you can see how I'm starting to connect these things together. This will show up in the reverse on the tasks database. So let me go back to tasks, and now you can see task 3 was complete. It's related to project B, and then we've got task 1 and 2 related to project A and B. Maybe we just want to see all projects, doesn't matter if they're done or not. So let's make another view and just says all, and we get rid of the filter by deleting it. And now we see all the tasks, whether they're done or not, and the projects that they are related to. So now we're starting to connect these things and be able to track these together and project manage. And so I want to go one step further and show you how to really level this up by using project templates and including a task view within the project. So when you're dealing with projects, you might have a project, and what's really cool about Notion is that this lives in a database, but you can open this page. So project A opens up. I can write a ton of information in this page. I can include images and all that stuff, but I can also include a view of the tasks database and only show tasks related to this project. You can see project A is related to task 1 right here. It even shows up at the top right here. So I can actually show a linked view, that's what they're called, a linked view of that task database, and show it in this project. And that would look like linked view of database, choose tasks, and let's say we want to see the active ones. This is going to show all tasks. You can see project A and project B are shown in here, and we don't want to see this project B because we're looking inside project A. So we can actually filter. On top of done is unchecked, we can add project is project A. And so now we're only seeing tasks related to this project. So you're able to see it on the database level, but also inside the page, inside that project page. And what's really cool about this is that in this view, because you have this filter applied, done unchecked, project is project A, if I add a new item right here, it automatically forces those properties, those property values onto the task. And so I made a new one, and I've got a few others, so let's call this task 4. And you can see that it's done as unchecked, but also project A was added to this task so that it shows up in this menu right here, in this linked view. let's take it a step further and make this a template. You saw how I had to open up the project and I had to type in a linked view and I had to set the filter. What's really cool is that we can actually make this all automatic using a project template. So I'm in the projects database. Over here on the top right, this drop down blue arrow, we click that, new template, we'll call it new project. And then you'll always know you're editing a template if you look at this banner up top. You're editing a template. That's how you know. Let's add a linked view to the tasks database, the same one. Let's show active for now. You can finesse this as much as you want. And then the question is, well, how do we add the filter? Because we're not actually, this isn't a real project yet. This is a template. But you can relate this to the new project template. This says new project because that's the title of this. If I call this new project template, you can see that it updated right here. I want to filter to this template. This is called self-referencing filters. If you ever see that, people talking about that online, that's what this is talking about. And this will make sense in a second if it doesn't so far. This template now is related to this, this task database in the template is related to the template. When we make a new project, it will, and we use that template, it will apply this and know what you want it to do, which is related to that project. So let's add a project C, and the template has not been applied yet. Let's press new project template, and it's gonna show this linked view, and let's check the filter, and project is already related to project C. So that template makes project management very fast and easy and scalable. And now we can add all sorts of tasks here. And what's really cool is now that we have 3 different projects and tasks that are individual for each of those projects, you can go into each of those projects and you can manage your tasks just from that view. And you can create different view tabs over here, right? But we can also still manage all of our tasks in one place because they belong in one task database. So we can use that same concept and do a linked view just on this dashboard to the tasks. Now I can see all my tasks regardless of what project they belong to. It kind of looks the same as if we opened up this task database directly, but I created a linked view so that I can be really specific with my filters and sorts. Let's say you had a person property and I wanted to assign somebody to this person, like me. And now what I can do is, if I'm on my own dashboard, I can create a view of tasks and filter it to only show those tasks that are related to me. So another way to do filtering is click on the property, filter, and then the person property contains Josh Red. This me one is really powerful. That's for a different video. But now I'm looking at a task database just for me. So I can see all tasks, but I can go into each project and see them based on the project. And I can also do the same thing with project management. I can add a linked view of projects. And so you can imagine that if you have a lot of projects going on, you probably want to see all of your projects and the status and the progress that you have on those projects in one spot rather than having to go to the project database. And so the same way with projects, maybe we have a status property attached to these, and this one is in progress, this one's not started, and this one's done. Maybe we want to see projects based on their status. And a really popular way of seeing that is in a board view, kind of like a Kanban board, if you're familiar with that. And so we can do that by clicking this Edit View Layout button right here, this menu, clicking the layout, and instead of a table, we're going to choose board. And you can kind of see there's already a bunch of really cool layouts for databases. Let's just go through board for now. And now we can see these projects based on their status. And if you wanted to, you can drag them around. Well, now I've screwed it up, haven't I? Let's go backwards. Because there was nothing in them, it's now hiding them, and I can adjust some settings to prevent that. And there's a lot of settings that are under this, but let's show a property like maybe the tasks. And as you add more properties, you can show more properties on this board view and really, really finesse this to make it work for you. A lot of different options. Too much for this one video. So now you can see we've got tasks and projects, but then we've got them together and we can open up these projects and see these tasks only related to it. We're using the project template right here. We can even set it as a default, so every project uses that template by default. And the last thing that I want to show you is the first concept that I talked about, which was putting all of your databases in one spot. So we've used a lot of linked databases, but I talked about making your databases tables or standalone pages by themselves, and then using these linked databases everywhere because we want to keep track of our data. The problem is it gets really easy to create multiple project databases or multiple task databases if you're just making those tables, but that completely ruins the ability to actually see all of your tasks in one spot or all of your projects in one spot. If they're in different tables, you lose that ability. And so we actually want to put these in their own, what we would call global databases. And as much as possible, only keep your tasks in this task database and not in a different one, and same for projects. So a lot of people will put them in a standalone page. That's what I do. And what's really fun is to call it your databasement, like the one place where all of your data lives. And so we'll just make a page. We'll call it databasement. And let's add, not a cover, but I guess we're sticking with it because I just did it. Data. And this is just going to be a blank page. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to scroll down, grab these two, drop it in the databasement. And now you are developing this one spot where you know all of your data is. And this is even more crucial if you actually work with multiple people for managing permissions. That it gets really, really important to do this. But even for individuals, it's good to know where your data is and not have to go searching around your entire workspace for it. And I've even seen a lot of people accidentally share a lot of really personal information, like medical records and things like that, because they were trying to share one page, which just had really useful information that they were trying to share, but they had a database living in that page, and they did not realize that by sharing that page, they shared all of their data in that database. So this is a really good practice for keeping your data private and secure, and even just keeping it in an easy spot so you know where it is whenever you need it. So that is how you can go from a simple to-do list using the to-do checkboxes that don't really give you a whole lot of power to actually taking advantage of one of Notion's most powerful features, which is databases. And trust me, that this only scratches the surface. You can imagine if you had files in a database and contacts in a database, all these other data objects, you could create CRMs and all these other types of workflows and connect them all together, creating this network of knowledge that will serve you really well and show your data in the context where it matters. And when done right, it works really smoothly, and it's honestly just a joy to use when you get it right. And so not only is it a joy, but it's also just safer and it's good practice, and it unlocks a lot of power, not only for you, but especially for other people if you're working on a team. And so hopefully that was helpful, and I hope that you will be able to manage your tasks, tackle them like a boss, and actually focus on the work that you want to do and use this as a tool to support that work.